Okay. Here. Okay, now it's working.
Now, can you see me?
Yes.
Oh, so at least something, huh? So we can start, and my Chinese friend will bring another computer. Maybe we will succeed with the other computer.
Yes, Bhante.
And
I already introduced you, and I already read a brief biography of yours.
okay.
And
So
yes, please.
so we can start. Huh? Sorry, there is a little delay, and the computer is coming. Maybe we will succeed to have a better reception. Huh? But you can hear me clearly, huh?
Yes. Okay, Bhante.
So our topic for these coming talks, there will be, I hope, 2 more talks before I leave for India. And when I'm in India, we can continue. I will have to teach at the university, but we will continue if I have the facilities there. So our topic is the 6th chapter of the Samdhinirmocana Sutra. The Samdhinirmocana Sutra, as if you don't know, is the basic sutra or the base sutra for understanding the mind only or Yogacara alaya tradition. You may have heard there are 2 traditions in the Yogacara. Yogacara means the conduct of the yogi. And basically the conduct of the yogi is to get bodhi. Bodhi means awakening through shamatha and vipassana. If we are the aspiring to become bodhisattvas, then the shamatha and vipassana boils down to the practice of the transcendental wisdom and transcendental meditation. So this tradition of Yogacara is dating back to the Maitreya, who might have been a historical person, the teacher of Asanga, or is just Asanga himself, who is the author, as you may know, of the Yogacara Bhumi Shastra. The Yogacara Bhumi Shastra is the base for our understanding of the alaya tradition. That means getting the body on the base of the penetrating the alaya consciousness. As you may know, in Buddhist tradition, except in the Yogacara, we have usually speak of 6 types of consciousnesses. This tradition is special because it refers to sometimes 7, sometimes 8, sometimes 9. I won't go into the detail. In different books, you will find the different types of consciousness. The most common is the analysis of Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, the 8 kinds of consciousnesses. The alaya consciousness is the 8th consciousness, and the 8th consciousness is the cause of all the other consciousnesses, being manas, which is like individualizing consciousness, and the vijnana, the differentiating consciousness. So the manas and the vijnana, they are based, their cause is in alaya. And through penetrating the alaya, which we usually translate as base consciousness, we will understand how we actually use our mind. Because the aim of the Mahayana tradition, as you may know, is the non-dual realization. And the non-dual realization is only possible by understanding the nature of the mind, which is non-dual. So this is the main thesis. We should be very familiar with that and understand it very clearly. The non-dual approach to meditation does not allow any reality in terms of duality of subject and object. So this is basically also different between the so-called Shravaka traditions, the traditions based on the teachings of the disciples, and the Mahayana traditions, which are based on the teachings of the Bodhisattvas. As you know, the Bodhisattvas are those who aspire for the ultimate realization connected with the omniscience in terms of non-dual realization of the mind. So this non-dual realization of the mind you can either attain by meditating on the alaya from which the duality comes. The duality is the product of the consciousness itself, not anything that exists in our real process of cognition. Or you can understand it by meditating on the so-called Buddha nature. This Buddha nature is very important in Chinese tradition. It is a base for understanding Zen, also for understanding Pure Land. Actually, the both traditions, the tradition of Alaya and the tradition of Tathagata Garbha, or the matrix of the Tathagata, or the seat of the perfect awakening in all sentient beings, these traditions actually, they both attributed to the legendary founder of this tradition, which is no other person than the Bodhisattva Maitreya himself. According to the Mahayana tradition, the Bodhisattva Maitreya has transmitted these teachings to especially to the Asanga, and the Asanga is, so to say, the historical founder of the tradition of Yogacara based on the Alaya. Now, this tradition has many scriptures, mostly the scriptures connected with the Shastra, the treatise, but the only really sutra that is a base for this tradition is this Samdhinirmocana Sutra. In Yogacara Bhumi Shastra attributed to Asanga, this Samdhinirmocana Sutra is quoted in its whole, except the introductory chapter. Now we are dealing in this short course with the 6th chapter, which explains which are the questions of Maitreya to the Buddha. And in these questions, we are to understand the how a bodhisattva practices the shamatha and the vipassana in order to get the liberation. So this sutra has many commentaries. Actually, practically all Chinese traditions are referring to the sutra. One does not need to be a Alaya Yogacara tradition. The Zen masters have also refer to this sutra, the Tiantai masters, the Huayan masters. This sutra is very important for understanding the mind in general. And without understanding the mind, we are, so to say, in darkness as far as liberation is concerned. This is true of all Buddhist traditions. By mind, we are bound. By mind, we are liberated. This is the essence of Buddhism. So this puts the emphasis to our understanding of mind. Without understanding mind, we cannot aspire for awakening, because awakening is again a function of the mind. Now, to understand this sixth chapter, which is so closely connected with Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, Yiche Shatilun, Yogacara Bhumi Shastra is in the Bodhisattva tradition, possibly the most important book on meditation. All teachers in the Tantric tradition, in the Chinese tradition of Buddhism, in some way or another, when they explain the shamatha and vipassana, and when they explain the practice of the paramis, which is the path of the bodhisattva, they refer to this treatise. And it is a very, very voluminous treatise, and we can study for many, many years. Now, the base for this treatise, as I have mentioned, is the Samdhinirmocana Sutra. And Samdhinirmocana Sutra is, in this Yogacara tradition, the sutra which is, so to say, for this tradition, establishing the third turning of the wheel of Dharma. And according to this tradition, it is the ultimate turning of the wheel of the Dharma. If you have studied Chinese tradition, according to the Chinese tradition, we have many different wheels of the Dharma. In Tiantai tradition is different, in Huayan tradition is different. In the Weishu tradition, in the consciousness-only tradition, we have 3 turnings of the wheel. And the turning of the wheel of Samdhinirmocana Sutra is the ultimate Dharma in this tradition. So Buddha has taught first the 4 noble truths, and the middle way based on the understanding of the 4 noble truths in Sarnath, in Banaras. This is a first turning of the wheel of Dharma to the famous 5 disciples. This is the basic Dharma. When we want to study Buddhism, we have to be very familiar with 4 noble truths. This is a base of all the structure of Buddhist practice. Without understanding 4 noble truths, the structure of Buddhist practice in all traditions does not make much sense. The second turning of the wheel of Dharma was in Rajagaha, today's Rajgir, which actually means the house of the emperor, of the Raja, of the king. Rajagaha, today Rajgir, is where the Buddha at the Gridhakuta, at the peak of the vultures, taught the Pragya Paramita Sutras. The whole structure of the Bodhisattva practice, no matter in which tradition, is based on the sutras belonging to this transcendental wisdom, Pragya Paramita sutras. There are many, many sutras. In Chinese tradition, the longest is in 100 volumes. Then we have in 100,000 volumes. Then we have in 25,000 volumes, which is most popular, translated by Kumarajiva, 100,000 by Xuanzang. Then we have 8,000 verses. And then we have a short Pragya Paramita Sutras, the most popular in China and in Tibet is the Diamond Sutra, which many of us learn by heart. And of course, the sutra we have learned, the Heart Sutra, which is the essence, the heart of all these voluminous sutras explaining the Bodhisattva path to enlightenment based on the nirvana being the natural state, the purity of the mind being the natural state. And this natural state is beyond, as we have learned, is beyond all mental, logical, dualistic understanding. One has to realize it directly. In order to understand the Samdhinirmocana Sutra, I will just mention very briefly, because of the lack of time, that we can not penetrate deeply into the 6th chapter without connecting it with the previous chapters and with the following chapters. The structure of the Yogacara Bhumi Shastra of Asanga is also based on the structure of this work. The Samdhinirmocana Sutra, we can translate Sandhi in Sanskrit, has many meanings. It means connection, it means a knot, it means a secret also. Many meanings. And Nirmocana means untying, revealing, losing. So I have translated this sutra into Czech based on the original translation into Chinese, which is untying the knots. Xuanzang, this is standard translation of the sutra, and I'm using Xuanzang's translation. He translated as revealing the secrets. Sutra Jie Shen Mi Jing. Jie means unlosing or revealing. Shen is deep and Mi is secret. So sutra of revealing the deep secrets. So when we study the sutra, we are untying the knots in our mind, which do not allow us to understand the non-dual nature of the mind. And also in Xuanzang's understanding, we are being revealed the secret of the true understanding of the Dharma. This true understanding of the Dharma is subject matter of the third turning of the wheel of Dharma, which in this tradition is the ultimate turning. There is no other real turning. And that took place in historically in Vaishali. The first chapter of this sutra, the introductory chapter, explained about the seat of Tathagata, which is, so to say, the Pure Land. As you may know, the Mahayana tradition is all connected with the Pure Land practice. And the Pure Land is nothing but the mind itself, of course. And so according to the tradition, Buddha taught this sutra in his Sambhoga Kaya, in his body of enjoyment, which only bodhisattvas can see, as you may know from the Lotus Sutra. It is not seen even by the disciples, and it can be only seen in Samadhi. And this this Sambhogakaya, as you may know, that in the teaching of Mahayana, we have the Nirmanakaya, the created body, that is a historical Buddha. We have the body of enjoyment for oneself and body of enjoyment for others. In this body of enjoyment for others, the Buddha creates the pure lands, which when the disciple meditates in samadhi, then he has, so to say, access to the pure land of the mind, which is non-dualistic, in which everything is actually only skillful means to bring him to this perfection of the mind, of the non-dual, which belongs to the non-dualistic mind, not to the dualistic mind. So this pure land actually represents in the first chapter nothing but the perfection of the mind. And this perfection of the mind, historically, the Buddha has also taught in Vaishali to the disciples and to the bodhisattvas. And it is, so to say, the content of this sutra. So in order to understand the second chapter, we are also to understand the content of the second chapter, which explains the Paramartha, the highest truth. In order to understand the highest truth, we have to understand that the highest truth cannot be with any real signs of the object. It cannot be a dual. The highest truth cannot be seen by non-awakened people. It can be seen only by awakened people, by direct realization, which is beyond words. This is very important to understand in order to understand the content of this sutra. So the highest truth nobody can explain. Nobody can explain, and yet we need words in order to have access to it. Because if we don't use words, nobody will believe that such purity is the reality of our mind, and that duality is nothing but the product of our, so to say, conceptual mind. The third chapter then explains, continuing the second chapter, that all differentiation exists, no doubt. We cannot say that it does not exist. It exists, but only in the relative truth, in the samvrti. Samvrti, reality, as Chandrakirti explains, you can understand as samvrinoti. This relative truth is actually that which conceals the highest truth, which is for the students of the bodhisattva path, which is the non-dual nature of the mind. This non-dual nature of the mind is concealed, vrinoti, all around, some, by our differentiations. This is very important to understand. So we are not deluded about the reality because we don't understand the reality. We are deluded about the concepts that we use to understand the reality. And the difference between the realized person and the non-realized person is that the realized person, the Buddha, he uses the concepts, but he does not attach to them. That is the freedom. We are using concepts, but we are not attached to reality. We are attached to the concepts through which we try to understand the reality. And this what the Buddha does not do. So as even the Sutta Nipata Dhammapada explains the difference between the realized man and the non-realized man is that the realized man, even the Supreme Buddha, has to use the concepts to speak, but he does not appropriate these concepts. This is very important for understanding our 6th chapter. So we appropriate this concept as if it was belonged to us, but the Buddha never does it. He is using the convention, but does not hold to the convention. That is the great freedom of the bodhisattvas. Using the conventions, living in the conventions, but not clinging to the conventions. And in order to attain this freedom, this eightfold division of the mind is very useful. We hold to the conventions because we don't see how our reality is produced by this basic mind itself, by the alaya vijnana. When in alaya vijnana, as soon as the mind appears, it appears in the 3 aspects. The witnessing mind, the mind which sees, and the object which is seen. In the alaya vijnana, they all happen in the same mind. This mind which witnesses is actually our karmic mind. The mind which turns to the object, in Chinese it's called tianfen, that which is seeing the object. In Sanskrit it's called avarjana chitta, that means the mind which turns to the object on the base of the karmic mind. Also at the same time is connected with the object, which is when the object is turning, then appears that what is seen. So first there has to be the karmic mind. Based on the karmic mind, the mind is dual aspect of the mind is activated by this mind which turns to the object, avarjana chitta, which is called in Chinese tianfen. And what appears at the same time is this xianfen, the that or xiangfen, that which is seen. When we see, then we see something. And because we are deluded about the nature of the mind, we see something as being outside of the mind itself. And this happens because of the karmic mind, where we have, so to say, accumulated our previous holdings to our mistaken, perverted views, perceptions, and differentiations in terms of duality, called in this tradition abhuta parikalpa, which basically means the non-real dualism of the mind, which comes from the mind itself. Because of this, then our 6 consciousnesses are based in the manas, which, so to say, appropriate what we see to some non-existing self. But this non-existing self has always been there, but it appears due to the mind itself. So this is the So this is very important for understanding. According to this tradition, and we will see it in our text, according to this tradition, as opposed to other Buddhist traditions, because of alaya vijnana being the base, being the cause of our many different perceptions and differentiations and feelings. So we can have different perceptions at the same time, and even the different feelings at the same time, because they come from the same source. This is very important. If we want to understand the Bodhisattva path, the non-dualistic approach to meditation, this is very important. So this dualism is a product of the mind itself. It does not exist in reality. According to the Theravada tradition, Sarvastivada tradition, the object outside is a real object. And the mind which turns to it is also the real object. But according to the dependent origination, they become the real object because of consciousness. And which consciousness? The alaya consciousness for this tradition. And this alaya consciousness is the result of the accumulation of our samskaras, of our will formations, and thereby also of what's going on?
It's okay, Bhante.
Okay, something funny happening.
Yeah.
Let me share if there is some good joke going on. So, so we are, so to say, in a state of ignorance because of the, according to Buddhism, the ignorance is the perversions of our mind, the perversion of the views, perversion of the perceptions, and perversion of the differentiations, and they happen in the mind itself. So due to ignorance, we then accumulate our will formations. Accumulation of will formation is a karma, nothing else. And due to accumulation of the karmic forces, then we believe, so to say, in the non-dualistic tradition, that the body and the mind is two separate things, and the outside object and the mind is also two different spheres. But actually, all this comes from the mind itself. Which mind? The karmic mind. So this briefly, it is the subject matter of the third chapter, which is very important for our understanding of the sixth chapter, which is the subject matter of our discourse. Then the fourth and fifth chapter, I will not explain in detail. The fourth and fifth chapter explain the very important approach, which is the subject matter of the third turning of the wheel of Dharma. Normally, in all Buddhist traditions, in order to attain liberation, in order to understand Buddhism, we have to understand the difference between the samvrti, the conventional truth, and the paramartha, the highest truth. As all Buddhist traditions teach, no matter whether Theravada or any Bodhisattva tradition teach, without understanding the two truths, the worldly truth or conventional truth, and the highest truth, we have no access to awakening. This is very important. Now, in this tradition, we don't have two truths, we have three truths. And this is the subject of the fourth chapter, explaining the three truths. And this is what Buddha has taught in Vaishali. This is the third turning of the wheel of Dharma, which is the ultimate turning of the wheel of Dharma. So in order to understand the ultimate teaching of the Buddha leading fastest to realization, of course, nobody can show nirvana, nobody can show the highest reality, but all that Buddha can teach and all that the disciples can teach and all that the bodhisattvas can teach is the path to the realization of the nirvana, to the realization of the ultimate reality. And in other tradition, in order to get a realization, we need to differentiate and understand and penetrate the two truths, the conventional truths and the highest truths. In this tradition, three truths. The first truth is called parikalpita. Pari means all around, and kalpita means from Sanskrit root kalp, kalpana, very important word, or vikalpa, many important terms in yoga connected with this root, Sanskrit root kalp, which means to fabricate, which means to arrange, which means to put together, which means to arrange, to set something. So this kalp here, parikalpita means best translation. I translate as fabricated all around, or in a sense, artificial, not real. So the parikalpita is the reality which imposes the notion of self-existence on the phenomena and on the persons. In the tradition of the disciples, the self-existent nature of the persons, the Pudgala, is the ultimate realization. And it includes, in a way, the realization when the person is not real, then what he sees also cannot be real. Now, in the Bodhisattva path, the emphasis shifts from the realization of the illusionary nature of the person to the illusionary nature of the phenomena, Dharma Nairatmya. Not Pudgala Nairatmya, but the highest realization is the Dharma Nairatmya. According to the Bodhisattva path, as long as one sees even nirvana in terms of duality, nirvana as opposite of samsara, then the realization will not be perfect, will not be complete, because there will be always some tendency, slight tendency, called vasana, the perfumation of the mind based on dual perception, which is in this tradition called abhuta parikalpa, the non-real construction. Non-real because it is produced by the karmic mind. And that which is produced by the karmic mind, which causes us to cling to objects, is not real. And we believe it to be real because we believe in the real existence of names, of sentences, of syllables, of the generalizations, and of the particularizations which we make in order to understand the reality. So as we will see in the 6th chapter, so due to clinging to the names, we impose on the true reality, which is reality of dependent origination, the illusion of a true self-existence. But in terms of, in deeper understanding of dependent origination, which is the essence of Buddha's teachings, it is what the Buddha has realized under the Bodhi tree. He has realized dependent origination. So in terms of deep understanding of dependent origination, there cannot be any real self-existent entity whatsoever. Not nirvana, not samsara, nothing can have self-existence. I have explained it in terms of the Heart Sutra. It is logical, because if nirvana is different from samsara, we can never reach nirvana. If nirvana is the same as samsara, then we don't need to make any effort to become Buddhas. So you are in logical contradiction. And the perfect path cannot be contrary to logic. This is also important emphasis of the Bodhisattva path. The truth cannot be in contradiction to the logic. The logic has to help to understand the highest reality. And the logic of Bodhisattva is the logic of the transcendental wisdom, which reveals the illusionary nature of dualism. So we have the, based on our imposing of self-existent nature on entities, our seeing of the dependent origination, which is seeing of the reality. The reality is always dependent on many, many causes and many, many conditions. So we see this reality, so to say, this reality is for us polluted by our imposition or of our deprivation of the true nature of reality, which must be non-dualistic. So either we impose something on reality by putting something there which is not there, or we deprive something of reality by saying that something is not there which is really there. But the dependent origination, as explained in all Buddhist tradition, is precisely the dependent origination is a true reality, because it cannot be otherwise. Ananyata. The dependent origin is ananyata. It cannot be otherwise. But for us, it can be otherwise, because we are still in the state of perverted views, perverted perception, and perverted differentiations. But for the Buddha, it cannot be otherwise. It is just as it is. Therefore, it is called dharmata, the true nature of the things. The true nature of the things is, in this non-dualistic tradition, is nothing but the emptiness. Emptiness means the impossibility of self-existent nature in any entity whatsoever. Be it nirvana, be it samsaric entity, like mind, like body, nothing, whatever, can be self-existent, because whatever exists is only that which has arisen, and what has arisen, independent origination, cannot arise without relation to the others. That's why it is called in Chinese Yi Ta Qi. Yi Ta Qi means arisen in relation dependent on other, on that which is not itself. In Sanskrit, it's called Paratantra. Paratantra means also same, created by other. So our reality for all beings, no matter whether we are humans, we are gods, or we are denizens of hell, or we are animals, for all sentient beings, their reality is a reality created by causes and conditions. And these causes and conditions, they are not according to the reality, but according to the karma, which precisely deludes the being. How it deludes the being? By clinging to the words, sentences, syllables, generalization, and particularization. Because of this, we argue. Because of this, we have conflicts. Because of this, we are in a state of non-perfect peace. And the perfect peace can never appear as long as we don't see the reality as it is. Dependent reality as it is seeing the emptiness of all the entities that arise in dependent origination. So the third reality is called parinishpana. Parinishpana means a perfect reality. Perfect reality is the reality where dependent origination is deprived of any notion of self-existence. So in fact, these three realities are again skillful means to lead us to the true understanding of the conventional reality and the absolute reality, the highest reality. Absolute is not a good word. Actually, we should say highest. So, because the absolute is something that does not change, but that which changes and that which does not change are in harmony. This is the non-dual understanding. Understanding of emptiness as being the self-existent nature of all phenomena is the mula jnana, is the root knowledge. Understanding of all that which arises also. This root knowledge reveals us that the ultimate reality cannot be grasped. And when we have realized the ultimate reality in regard to the phenomena which arise, we have the so-called Chota Prishtalabdha Jnana. It means when we become Buddhas, we see the worldly reality which arises and passes away as being not something contradictory to the highest reality, the reality of emptiness, which never arises and never passes away. So the movement and stillness, they have to arise in a non-dual mind as being in a state of emptiness. The state of emptiness is a state of the ultimate peace. This is a non-dual approach to meditation. So in order to understand this approach, we have to understand the content of the 5th chapter, which explains these 3 characteristics of the reality, the parikalpita, paratantra, and parinishpana, the fabricated reality, the dependent reality, and the perfect reality in terms of the emptiness. All 3 realities are actually empty. So the 3 realities is the skillful means for understanding one perfect reality to which you cannot add anything, from which you cannot take anything. And this one reality is the reality of emptiness. In order to, and this is the ultimate teaching. This is what the Buddha is explaining in the Samdhinirmocana Sutra, the ultimate meaning of the Buddha's teachings. The ultimate meaning of the Buddha's teachings is that that which for us have some self-existence has no characteristics at all. The names, the sentences, the syllables, our generalizations and our particularizations, they cannot have any real characteristics because they are based on the always changing conventions, and convictions, of course, also. Because the name is just, even in Abhidharma, is just the sound. And the sound has, it does not mean that one sound is more wholesome than the other sound. It does not mean that the table is better than the Jodza or than the any other language, dish or table or table. It does not make any sense. The words do not have any real characteristics. When we understand that, we understand that the dependent origination that we understand on the base of the words is not the dependent origination as it really is. Yatha bhutam, as it is in reality. That is ananyata. It cannot be otherwise. This is what Buddha sees. He just reflects things as they are. He does not hold to them. He does not need to abandon anything. He does not need to grasp anything. He just reflects as it is. This is a state of the Buddha. So the very important part of the Bodhisattva tradition is to study the mind of the Buddha. The mind of the saints is the mind which is real. The mind of the deluded beings is the mind which has no reality whatsoever. It is a karmic mind which creates the dualistic world. So This understanding gives tremendous freedom to the mind, tremendous freedom in attention. Attention is a key for arising of sensation and arising of perception. Sensation arises on the base of perception, and due to this, our attention usually is based on the wrong understanding of perception and wrong understanding of the feeling to which we hold and grasp. And this is because we have not understood how the dualistic mind is created by the mind itself, by the karmic mind. The karmic mind is that mind also which actually witnesses how there is that which sees and that which is seen. But it witnesses already with tendencies based on our impurity, based on our holding. So this is very deep philosophy, deep psychology, which is at the background of the 6th chapter. These previous 5 chapters, maybe let the introduction not be included. Introduction is also not quoted in the Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, but the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th chapter, they are, so to say, what the Yogacara Bhumi Shastra calls the understanding of the Gochara. Gochara means the base of yoga. If we don't have the base for yoga, we cannot practice yoga correctly. And the base of yoga is the mind. No matter whether this Buddhist tradition or the Hindu tradition, the real yoga is a yoga which brings us to the true understanding of the mind and activities of the mind. The Patanjali sage defines yoga as chitta vritti nirodha, as the cessation of the active mind. A very similar approach. The active mind is nothing but the karmic mind, and which in the non-dualistic tradition creates the delusion of the dual perception. And based on dual perception, we have contradictory feelings. I like, I dislike, I want, I do not want. And our worldly mind is completely dominated by this feeling and differentiates by these feelings. It does not mean we want to go beyond feeling, but the Buddhist practice in all Buddhist traditions is to understand how the feelings work so that we can use them in a positive way to integrate into the reality, not to be opposed to reality. And the reality is a reality of dependent origination, which does not allow any self-existent entity whatsoever. So first we have to understand the yoga gochara, the base for yoga, which is a mind. And Yogacara Bhumi Shastra expatiates on it, the mind with vitarka, the mind with the gross distinction, the mind with subtle distinction, the mind without distinction, the concentrated mind, non-concentrated mind, all kinds of different types of mind. They are the base for yoga. When we understand the base of yoga, the mind, we can understand the charita, the conduct according to the yoga. Yoga chara, yoga means yoga. That means actually link to the true reality. Yoga means link. When we have link to the true reality, which for the Buddhist is the reality of the mind, because everything is determined by the mind, that what we experience. Without the mind, we don't experience anything. And the world has a meaning because we are the beings. And beings, we are beings because we have mind. And the beings are the meaning of the world. They give meaning to the world. Without the beings, the world has no meaning. This is very important to understand. So the liberation and the bondage comes from the mind itself. And because we don't understand the mind, so we don't understand how to conduct ourselves according to yoga, according to the link to the highest reality, however we define it. For the Buddhists, it is nirvana. For others, it may be God. But finally, that reality is beyond words. We all agree on that. So the real conduct of the yoga is then explained in the 6th and in the 7th chapter. In the 6th chapter, the questions of the Maitreya explains the correct understanding of shamatha and vipassana. That is the essence of the yoga. Now the 7th chapter, the questions of the Avalokiteshvara, of Kwanshu Yin Bosa, explain the correct practice of the paramis, of the perfections, which is for the bodhisattva the real practice for the attainment of the non-dualistic realization of the bodhisattva realization based on the transcendental wisdom. And finally, the questions of the Manjushri. The questions of the Manjushri are, so to say, concerned with the fruit of the yoga. The fruit of the yoga is the perfect omniscience, the sarva akara, sarva gyata, the omniscience in all aspects, which is the perfection of the Buddha, based on the realization of the 3 bodies. The created body, which is the perfect marks of the yoga, the 32 primary marks and 80 secondary marks. Then you have the body of enjoyment, which the bodhisattvas see in terms of the Pure Land. So in a way, all non-dualistic practices are based on the understanding of mind as Pure Land. And finally, the Dharmakaya, which is a real Buddha and which has no signs and which is beyond all intellectualization and which is beyond any expatiations by word, by prapancha, which is beyond all clinging. You cannot cling to the highest reality precisely because it is Dharmakaya. It is body of the Dharma, which is another word for emptiness. It is another word for things as they really are. It is another word for the limit of the reality, Genru. You cannot go beyond that. That is all that there is. So with this, we come to the 6th chapter, which is the subject matter of today's talk. And let us do at least the beginning, and we will continue. I will have to summarize because of the lack of time. I'm using two commentaries. The first one is by, I like the best, this commentary by Yuan Zi, Wan Hyo. Xuanzang, when he returned to China, he had two great disciples. The most famous is Gui Ji, who has written the many books and many commentaries to all the what Xuanzang has written. Most famous is his commentary to the Cheng Wei Shilun, which is indispensable for understanding the book. That's why it's called Shuji. Then another great disciple was Wan Hyo or Yuan Zi in Chinese, who was a Korean monk. And I'm using his commentary. Then there is another excellent commentary by the Qing dynasty scholar and Han Qingjing. You may have heard at the end of Qing dynasty, there was a great movement for renewal of Buddhism, especially of the Yogacara Buddhism. And he was one of the main persons who have initiated that movement. And that was the time of great changes in China. Kan You-wei, Liang Qichao, Tang Sedong, and so on and so on. They were all inspired by their works and studied the Wei Shi and especially the Huayan, which was base for many of the late Qing philosophy and psychology scholars. So let us come to the text itself. I use my translation and I use the Chinese text. Unfortunately, there is no text in Sanskrit, only some quotations for the text. So we have to rely on Chinese. And there is an English translation by Thomas Clary, which I don't have here. So I use my translation into Czech. Or I don't use my translation, we translate directly from the Chinese. So the first question is, this, as we have seen, the whole text is based on the questions of the Bodhisattva Maitreya and the answers of the Buddha himself. And this discussion between them explains how to understand the essence of yoga, the practice of shamatha and vipassana correctly, without misunderstanding. Because misunderstanding in shamatha and vipassana is misunderstanding in the whole of the Buddhist path, in the whole of the, especially Bodhisattva path. which emphasizes the non-dualistic approach to meditation. So no matter whether we are practicing in Zen meditation, which more emphasizes the Buddha nature side, or tantric meditation, which also more emphasizes the Buddha nature side of the mind, or we learn meditation according to this sutra, which emphasizes more the alaya side of the mind, from which the duality comes. Both these traditions can be traced back to no other than Maitreya himself, and they are reconcilable. There is actually no problem to reconcile them. We may talk about it sometimes later. They are also actually reconciled in like Lankavatara Sutra. Lankavatara Sutra, as you may know, is what the Dhammo, the Bodhidharma, is supposed to have taught when he came to China. And this tradition, so to say, reconciles and put together this Alaya Vijnana approach and the Buddha nature approach, and makes them one. So the text starts, so we are at that time, maybe I won't read in Chinese, I just translate. But for those who know Chinese, maybe some terms I will still explain in Chinese. So at that time, the Maitreya, asked the Buddha, the Shizong, the world worshipman, Bosa He Yi He Zhu, two questions. Based on what and dwelling where does a bodhisattva practice shamatha and vipassana according to the Taishan, according to the Mahayana? So based on what and dwelling on what does a bodhisattva in the Mahayana tradition practice shamatha and vipassana? This is the first question, and it brings us, so to say, to the what is taught in the following part of the scripture. So in order to understand the non-dual approach, we have to understand on based on what and dwelling on what does a bodhisattva practice shamatha and vipassana. If you know the Daimon Sutra, we have beginning similar. How does a bodhisattva practice actually? So dwelling on what refers actually to the stages of the path. As you may know, in this tradition, in order to become a perfect Buddha, you have to have the Gotra Jungshin, you have to belong to the family of the Bodhisattvas. You have to have avatara, you have to have a method to attain it so that you practice correctly. That is, first you have to have the equipment, ziliang, Then you have to have kyashin, you have to have correct effort here in the dualistic sense. Only then you can have the direct non-dual realization. Then you become the real bodhisattva, the Ti-bosa, the Bhumi-bosa, and then you continue from the first Bhumi, which is called the joyful Bhumi, Si-Ti, to the 10th Bhumi, which is Fa-Yun, the Dharma Mega, the Dharma Cloud Bhumi, and then on the Dharma Cloud Bhumi you have mastered all the perfections, then you can become the perfect Buddha. So let us see the answer. The Buddha replied to the Maitreya. Shangnanzi, Shangnanzi means belonging to the good family. You, as we have said before, you can become only the Buddha when you become to the family of bodhisattvas who practice the transcendental wisdom, the non-dualistic wisdom, the wisdom of the emptiness, being the only self-existent nature of all that we experience. So you should know Tanzhi Bosa Fa Tia Anli. For a bodhisattva, he should understand that the Dharma is established, but it is established in illusionary way, Tia Anli. In other sense, the Dharma cannot be established. The Dharma cannot be a dogma. The reality cannot be established. If you establish the reality as a dogma, based on words, based on sentences, based on vowels or syllables, every beings, no matter whether gods or animals or denizens of hell, they communicate. And you cannot establish reality as it is by communication. You can only establish reality by direct awakening. This is very important to understand. So when you establish a reality, the Dharma means reality for the Buddhist, things as they really are, the highest Dharma being the Nirvana, but the phenomena of our experience are also called Dharma in Buddhism. Dharma means also the path. The morality is also called Dharma. The meditation is also called Dharma. Dharma has many meanings, but here it has a meaning especially of reality. So the reality which is established is illusionary established, is not really established. If you really establish a reality, you are, so to say, establishing in illusionary way, not in a real way. Because all you can establish is only conventional reality. And in Buddhism, through deep understanding of the conventional reality, here in this sense, the conventional reality is a reality of differentiations, which are, so to say, real but only in relative sense. And that which is real in relative sense cannot be real in the highest sense. So in order to practice correctly shamatha and vipassana according to the bodhisattva path, which leads to the perfect non-dualistic enlightenment, you cannot establish reality. If you establish reality, you should be aware that this is only temporary. This is a reality which has no self-existence, which you have, so to say, established, but it is provisional, it is not true, it is illusionary as such. When you believe it is true as such, you are, so to say, not understanding the practice of shamatha and vipassana in a non-dualistic way. So first thing, you have to understand that whatever you established is only provisionally established, is established by the illusionary mind, not by the mind in the highest non-dualistic sense. And ki pu sha anutara samyak sambodhi. And you do not you do not let go, you do not abandon your vow to attain the Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, to attain the highest peerless realization of the Buddha, which is non-dualistic realization, which is omniscience in all aspects. That means just reflecting reality as it is, reflecting ananyata, reflecting that it cannot be in any other way, reflecting it as being perfectly non-self-existent. Non-self-existent means non-dualistic. Whatever arises, as we have taught before, based on the many causes and conditions, and this is all that we know, cannot be self-existent as such. This is contradiction in term. And if we want to study the Bodhisattva path, we have to be based on this principle, and we have to dwell in this principle. Only in this way, no other way, we can truly practice shamatha and vipassana, appeasement and insight, in terms of the Bodhisattva path, in terms of the Mahayana path. There is no other way. So one who practices the Mahayana path, he has to practice without establishing whatsoever. This is a state of Buddha. But we cannot do it, of course. There is no way to practice without establishing something. But we have to understand that it is established in the conventional reality, not in the highest reality. So we should not cling to it. It may change. That which is established in the conventional reality is always subjected to change. But that which is established in the highest reality, the non-self-existent nature of all phenomena, that exists in itself. That is a true characteristics of all the phenomena of our experience, and there cannot be any other. When we understand this reality, we can, so Nagarjuna also explains in the Bodhi Tsulyang Lun, so we can practice the path to nirvana in a more smooth way and avoiding many unnecessary contradictions, because we see that it is impossible to establish self-existent nature in that which by definition must be deprived of self-existent nature. So nothing in our experience can exist by itself. And what we establish as by itself is falsely established due to our ignorance. Ignorance, the content of ignorance is the perversion of the view, perversion of perception, and perversion of differentiation. Tian Tao, Xiang Tian Tao, Ken Shi Tian Tao. Because of this, we see the permanent in that which is impermanent. We see happiness, lasting happiness, in that which cannot bring lasting happiness. We see the self in that which is not the self, and we see purity in that which cannot be ultimately pure. Ultimate purity cannot be established by any means of words, dogmas, and generalization and particularizations. So we go right deep into the shamatha and vipassana as conceived in a non-dualistic way. There are several other things we could discuss, but let us go to the next questions so that we can move. The most important aspects we have explained. So now we come to the questions number 2. The question number 1 is the differentiation in terms of the dependence and the dwelling, true dependence and true dwelling in terms of the Mahayana path. The second very important questions, and it will take time to even to explain in brief, is the question about the objects of correct understanding of the objects of shamatha and vipassana. This is the second question. So the Maitreya says, you teach, it is not indicated where he teaches, you teach the that there are 4 objects. Actually, it says Gochara Vastu. Gochara Tin Shi. Tin Shi means the real object. Shi here means in terms of Shi, the real reality, in base in Sanskrit, Vastu, Gochara Vastu, which are the 4 Gochara Vastu, which are the 4 real objects of shamatha and vipassana that you teach. There is no indication about the sutra or about the place where the Buddha teaches it, but it is very interesting. It is very important for understanding this tradition. And it is referred to by all teachers of meditation in the northern tradition of Buddhism, in China, Tibet, and the countries where Buddhism was transmitted through them. So the answer of the Maitreya is the first object is called in Sanskrit. You will find the same material in Yogacara Bhumi Shastra of Asanga. The first is called Fen Pie Yin Xiang Suo Yuan Jing Shi. That means the Yin Xiang means reflected image. Like in mirror, you have a reflected image. Similarly, in mind, what we experience in mind are the reflected image of the reality, which comes from the mind itself. If you want to understand this tradition, you have to understand that we are not attached to the reality as it is. We are attached to the reality as produced by the images of our mind. The Buddha does not need to produce any images to understand the reality. He reflects the reality, as we will see in the later part of this chapter, like in the mirror as it is. So the Buddha, as opposed to us, he does not need to pay any attention to the object. He does not need to investigate the object by vitarka, vichara. He just reflects it as it is. And accordingly, he then can guide the beings according to the needs of the beings, because he has no more need to search for anything. He has found the reality as it really is. This is a deep meaning of dependent origination, what Buddha has experienced under the Bodhi tree. And he thought that this is so deep that we beings are unable to understand it. And it is indeed very deep. This is explained also in the Agamas. Even after realization, we still don't understand reality as it is. Only the Buddha himself. This is what especially the Mahayana scriptures teach. So even when we have realization, we still have tendency of being deluded about the reality, because we search, because we investigate, but not simply reflect as it is. So this is very, very deep meaning of the Yogacara. We are clinging to, because we cling to the images produced by our mind, we are clinging to the reality. But these are only images, not more than that. And these images are created by our karmic consciousness. So the first object, in order to understand the meditation of shamatha and vipassana, first object to be understood is the mental image or reflection of the mind based on differentiation. So that is the first real object of shamatha and vipassana. Because in this tradition, as we have learned before, all objects come from the mind. There is no exception. Mind is a cause, and the other consciousnesses are the result. Self consciousness is a result, and the six senses, what they differentiate based on the self-consciousness, is also the result. And the cause is a mind itself. And that mind, which is a cause, the karmic mind, which creates the illusion of duality, that produces images on which we cling. So these images are images of the dream, but these images are also the images of reality on which we cling. And we cling on them because we impose the idea of self-existing nature. The second real object of shamatha and vipassana is the mental image without differentiation. So when we have a mental image, we can either differentiate it, or we do not differentiate it. If we do not differentiate it, then we can stay with the same image for a long time. If we differentiate it, then we change the images. Then the third image is called Vastu Paryanta, real image. When we become enlightened, and I hope it will happen soon, then what will happen? Vastu Paryanta, we have understood the Vastu, the base of our experience as it is. The base of our experience of the object as it really is. And that means that when we have the direct experience of reality, we understand yavat bhavikata and yatha bhavikata. We understand the reality in terms of as far as we can go. Nobody can go beyond in his worldly experience. As far as we can go, for the Buddhist, it is the 5 aggregates of existence, the rupa, the form, the vedana, the sensation, sanya, the perception, the will formations, samskara, and the differentiating consciousness. We cannot go beyond them. That is all in our worldly experience. Then, when we have the 5 aggregates, we have also the 6 spheres, ayatanas, the eye, and the colors, and so on, until mind and the mental objects. And we have the 18 spheres, dhatu, or tie, the eye, color, and the eye consciousness. This is all we can realize. That's why yavat bhavikata. Tin suoyoshi. Tin means as far as one can go. We cannot go beyond. So when we have the realization, then we know we cannot go beyond these things. And then yatha bhavikata. Yatha means zhu. Zhu suo yo xing. That means everything that we realize is zhu, is as it is, in terms of non-self-existent nature, in terms of dependent origination, in terms of in worldly experience of impermanence, the sorrowful nature of impermanence, the selfless nature of impermanence, and the purity of impermanence, because it is created by the karmic consciousness. So So we know that there is no way beyond this. And in all this, there cannot be a self-existent nature. Then when this realization comes to perfection, then we come to the Suo Zuo Cheng Pan. That means when we become a Buddha, the one who has the direct experience of reality based on not avidya, not ignorance, but on vidya, on the science, on knowledge, then we have done what is to be done. In terms of the disciple, in this tradition, these three, not like in the Lotus Sutra, but in this tradition, it recognizes the three Buddhas, the Arahat Buddha, the Pratyeka Buddha, and the Samyak Sambuddha, the perfect Buddha. The Arahat Buddha, same like the perfect Buddha, he has the body of liberation. Arahat has body of liberation. The Buddha has body of liberation. So we have the 5 aggregates of clinging, upadana skandha, wu qi yin, because we are not Buddhas. So we still cling to the objects of our experience. When we become an Arahat, so we don't have upadana skandhas, we don't have 5 aggregates of clinging, we have the 5 aggregates of liberation. The Sila aggregate of liberation, the aggregate of liberation of the right conduct, the Samadhi aggregate of liberation, the liberation by Samadhi, which is concentration without clinging. And the third, the Panya or Pragya aggregate of liberation, liberation by wisdom, the wisdom of selflessness, of our experience. And then the wisdom of the liberation, and the wisdom of knowledge of liberation. So the 5 aggregates of clinging become the 5 aggregates of liberation, which all Buddhas have. The Pratyeka Buddha also has the 5 aggregates of realization, but the Bodhisattva Buddha, who has perfected the practice of the paramis, he has the Dharma Kaya, the body of the Dharma. The body of the Dharma, the lower vehicles, the vehicle of disciples and the vehicles of the Buddhas for themselves, they do not have. And we can have only the Dharmakaya when we have realized the non-dualistic nature of emptiness. So Dharmakaya is a synonym of emptiness, and is a synonym of Dharmata, the true nature of the Dharma, and is a synonym of Genru, is a synonym of the real reality, which has no limit. That is a reality of the non-dualistic emptiness. And So these are the four objects of the process of shamatha and vipassana, no matter whether we are the disciples or pratyeka Buddhas or the bodhisattvas. In order to understand the shamatha and vipassana, we have to understand these four objects of shamatha and vipassana. They are called apya alambana. They are called the apya means all-including objects of meditation. They include everything, so to say, from the point of view of Yogacara that we experience in meditation. As long as we are not realized, we experience, so to say, only two objects. The mental images with differentiation, which, as we will see, is what we investigate in Vipassana, and the mental images without the differentiation is what we place our mind on in shamatha. But we cannot go beyond images. So as long as we cannot go beyond images, we will hold to these images as being the as long as we have not understood that these mental images come from the mind itself, we will be, so to say, deluded about the real nature of our experience. And for this tradition, the real nature of our experience is the understanding that the mind is the only base and only cause of our experience. There is no other cause. So for this reason, the realization of the perfect Buddha is a realization, perfect realization of the non. Why recording stopped? Okay.
Let's continue, Bhante.
Okay. You have recorded, no, what I'm saying? Maybe.
Yes, Bhante.
It says recording started, recording stopped, so I'm confused. No problem, huh?
Yes, no. Okay.
Okay. So these four objects, they are to be understood. And the difference between the practice of the disciples and the practice of the Yogacara, of the Mahayana in this tradition, is the Mahayana emphasizes that there cannot be any self-existent nature, that all the characteristics in terms of generalization or particularization cannot be, they belong to the ultimate reality, and that the ultimate reality is only the mind. The other things the Buddha needs to understand, that means non-self, wu-wo, not that which belongs to the self, wo-suo, wu-wo-suo, and the non-objective nature of pleasant, unpleasant, and neither pleasant nor unpleasant. Manapa, amanapa, na manapa, na amanapa. All this is cannot be the object of clinging because it has no real nature. But this realization that all is created by the mind, that all the generalization and particularizations cannot hold in the true reality, and that the true reality cannot have any self-existent nature whatsoever. This is the practice of the Bodhisattva, the peculiar understanding of suchness of Bodhisattva. The suchness of other Buddhas, that means the suchness of non-self, the suchness of nothing can belong to the self, and the suchness of the illusionary nature of pleasant, unpleasant, and neither pleasant nor unpleasant sensation. That is common to all Buddhas. That is a penetration of all Buddhas. So maybe with this we will stop for today, and we will continue explaining these 4 objects and the other subject matter next week. Is it all right?
Yes, Bhante.
So if there are any questions, let us go to the questions. If not, so we will finish here. And there is a lot to learn. We are only in the beginning. The One Hyo divides this 6th chapter into 18 questions and 18 answers. Now we are still at the first and now just touched the second, so we have a lot to learn. But I hope slowly you will get a more complete picture. We will continue as long as I am here in the Czech Republic, and I hope we can continue when I'm in India also. And if any one of you coming to India, welcome to visit my place also. Okay, so any questions?
Kawan-kawan, kalau ada pertanyaan yang mendesak, silakan. Kalau enggak, mungkin kita save dulu untuk periode berikutnya. Bhante, actually, I have a few questions, but I think I need to digest, and then I will submit the question later on the next session, Bhante.
Okay, it's a very important material. We should all try our best to digest. I hope you will not get mental indigestion or mental diarrhea, so we can meditate with confidence and with wisdom.
Actually, I have some intuitive question. Just need to connecting the dot between the image and then the prapancha and then the Vedana. How come, or which come first, and then. But I think I prefer. I will formulate the question later, Bhante. So better to digest it.
Actually, there are different explanations in different traditions. If you study Cheng Shalun, there is like progression. If you study Theravada or you study the Yogacara, actually this perception and sensation and investigation, they happen in one mental moment. But definitely the mental, our cognition is a mental process. So same like in Theravada, first you have to have impact on the mind, then the mind will investigate the object, then you will decide according to your investigation of the object, then you, so to say, go through the object, and then the mind turns back to the base consciousness. This is very similar. And in each moment of this process, actually, you will have a perception and feeling or sensation, because they are the chitta samskaras. They are that which forms the mind. The mind cannot be formed without a perception and sensation. Just like body cannot be formed without the breath or prana or bodily formation. So just like prana forms the body, so the perceptions and the sensations form the mind. Without them, you cannot have a single moment of the mind. This is very deep psychology, of course. We have to investigate, study more, and most important, practice and realize.
Okay, just
so
one brief question, Bhante. Recently, I just discovered in my practice, I have a suspicion that actually which come first. I mean, a few times I experiencing mental discomfort. That means sensation or Vedana discomfort. But it is precisely because I recognize it as discomfort. I mean, because I give a name, it is discomfort, and it gives effect discomfort. But if I can access before it has a name, actually, it is not a discomfort. So, and then this, a few experience sometimes makes me suspicion, actually, which come first? I recognize discomfort, or actually it is because I recognize this I give a name, or I recognize this is a discomfort, it make it discomfort. But if I can access before it has a name, it has no effect before it becomes discomfort. It is like,
yes,
like a Bahia Sutra or something like that.
This is a secret of our mind. The secret of our mind is that the mental process starts with attention. You cannot have a mental process without attention. The attention is like the key for opening the mind. Which mind? The karmic mind. That's why this Mahayana Sutra say that the Buddha, the perfectly realized Buddha, does not need any attention. We need attention in order to, so to say, release the mind to the object. If we don't pay attention, we don't release the mind to the object. The object is, so to say, there, but we don't investigate the object, right? Are you aware of this? Now, how we use our attention will decide also how we use our mind. So it is very important. It will be described also in the 6th chapter. In order to go into shamatha and vipassana, you have to use wise attention. in Buddhism, we have the distinction between Yoniso Manasikara and Ayoniso Manasikara. The Yoniso Manasikara creates the Kusala Chitta, the wholesome mind. The Ayoniso Manasikara creates the unwholesome mind. The wholesome mind is a mind which does not cling, because it understands impermanence, the discomfort of impermanence, and the selfless nature of impermanence. That's why you know it is not mine, so you do not cling to that. But the Ayoniso Manasikara, the Manasikara without the reason, without the base in reality, that Manasikara is deluded about the impermanent being just impermanent, the impermanent being the not giving lasting happiness, and not being the self. So when we have unreasonable attention, we are clinging to the objects. Because we are clinging to the objects, that is why we experience more discomfort. When we detach from the objects, we can experience state of Jing-an. And according, we will see in the 6th chapter, the base for shamatha and vipassana is this Jing-an, the prasrabdhi, the state of clarity and relaxation. When we have a state of clarity and relaxation, we can combine shamatha and vipassana and make the mind balance. So we can practice Zen, we can practice the tantric tradition, we can practice shamatha vipassana effectively. As long as we don't have Jing-an, we cannot practice shamatha and vipassana effectively. Impossible. So for that, we need the Yoniso Manasika. That is very subtle. The Buddhist psychology is very, very subtle, very wonderful. We have so much to learn. So let us continue next week. Huh?
Yes, Bhante. Thank you very much, Bhante.
So we have, let us transfer merit for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Kawan-kawan, kalau bisa mungkin buka kameranya, please.
I make a simple one in Chinese. 愿以此功德普济一切，我等一众生皆空成佛道。May the merit of this Dharma spread to all beings so that we attain the state of perfection. Eta vata chamehi sampatam punya sampadam sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampati siddhya. Eta vata chamehi sampatam punya sampadam sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabba sampati siddhya. Eta vata chamehi sampatam punya sampadam sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampati siddhya. May we, by the virtue of this Dhamma, may all the gods, all these sentient beings, and all the beings make anumodana so that we attain all the realizations. Omitobo. So looking forward to see you, and we do next week the same time. Huh? Okay.
Yes, Bhante. Bhante, this Pak Slamet, I already invite him. Pak Slamet, Bu Kiki, husband Bhante. You ask him.
Okay.
Oh.
Salamat.
Yeah, how are you,
Salamat.
Bhante? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is Vicky. Yeah.
Yeah, that is
Selamat,
Yeah.
selamat
On
malam.
October.
You are
Yeah.
selamat malam, no?
Yeah, selamat malam. Yeah.
How are you,
Selamat
Bante?
malam. I am good. Apa kabar? Apa kabar? Kabar baik.
Baik, ya.
Very nice. So hope we meet again, and looking forward to talk to you next time. Huh?
Oke, thank you.
Next Friday. Huh?
Bye, ya.
Yeah, thank you,
Please
Bante.
take care.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you, Bante. Take care.
Selamat jalan.
Selamat malam.
Au revoir, Bante.
Bye. Okay, meeting verlassen.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yuk, terima kasih semua.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Terima kasih Novi. Yuk.
Thank you, Wiwi.
Thank you penerjemahnya.
Hmm.
Mabuk.
Yang terjemahin pintar banget, cepet banget.
Wiwi luar biasa. One, Aku end ya meeting ya.
Oke,
Terima kasih
yuk.
semua.